Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's best standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go. I see you. And let's dive into today's best standard. Hey everyone, my name is Sarah McCarthy and I am super excited that you are joining me today as we break down today's best standard, which is MA.4.AR.1.2. MA stands for Math, 4 for 4th grade, AR for Algebraic Reasoning, and we're on 1.2 today. This standard says to solve real-world problems involving addition and subtraction of fractions. Addition and subtraction of fractions with like denominators, which means our denominators must be the same. That's right. Including with mixed numbers, which here's a mixed number for you, and fractions that are greater than 1, just like 7/4. So adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators, super fun. By the way, this resource that I am marking up all over is not something that I created. I cannot take credit for this. The Department of Education in Florida releases this document to the public. So I'm just showing you in these videos how I go through and analyze and mark up the standards to make sense of them, to understand them, and to create resources that are strategically aligned to the standards in taking on the B.E.S.T, which you will see later what you have access to with your membership. Okay, let's take a look at the clarifications. It says problems include creating real-world situations based on an equation, meaning we show them an equation and they are able to create situations that match the equation. We need lots. Give me all the visual models and equations with this, right? Fractions within the problems must absolutely reference the same whole. If we are talking about an apple and a banana, those are two different wholes. If we're separating them, the fractions will not match. We have to be referring to the same whole. So if we're talking about a pizza, a medium-sized pizza, we need to be talking about a medium-sized pizza here. The same type of whole, okay? Or if we're talking about an hour for something, a fraction of an hour, we also need to be adding another fraction of an hour. Not a fraction of a minute, but a fraction of an hour. So the same whole. Cool? Within this benchmark, it says the expectation is not to simplify or use the lowest terms. That's all awesome. I would still bring it up in discussion to build their number sense. If you end up with a fraction that says, like here, 6/8, bring it up. Hey, 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. It doesn't hurt to do that. You don't have to create a whole little side lesson on it. Just starting to get their minds wrapped around the number sense of what fractions are. Or 2/4. That's the same as 1/2. Bring it up in conversation now, but the expectation is not that they have to simplify it at the end. If they get an answer that says 6/8, they do not have to reduce it. Okay? Denominators are limited to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, and 100. So be careful with any of the other resources that you might be using. I've caught a couple, honestly, I don't know if it was here in this particular standard, but I've even seen some examples in this document where the denominators don't line up with that limitation. So just keep in mind what your limitation is. If you see a fraction that has 7 as a denominator, put it aside or change it out with another denominator, okay? Related benchmarks. In 4th grade, we have an equivalent fractions. We have adding and subtracting with fractions. We have 2-step with distance and time that's related, and our DP standard real world with data. So fractions are pretty heavy in 4th grade, so we need to make sure that they've got it now. Equation over here for the term. Equation, this right here is an example of an equation because we have an equal sign and 2 sides right there. So that would be an equation. Where are they coming from in 3rd grade? What knowledge are they coming to us with? We've got this standard right here, 3.F.R.1.2, which is the sum of unit fractions. So in 3rd grade, they should have been able to take a whole and say, look at this whole. It's cut into 4 parts, which means it's 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. So they have had a little bit of exposure to adding fractions, adding unit fractions. In 5th grade, though, we are kicking it up. So make sure they're ready, because we have adding, subtracting, and multiplying fractions in real world problems with unlike denominators. So let's make sure that they have these like denominators down, because next year they're going to have to create equivalent fractions with the same to match up those denominators. Purpose and instructional strategies. What jumped out at me? We are adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators to real world situations. We're connecting it. So we had this standard right here, which was adding and subtracting fractions, and now we're just putting it into a real world situation. So really, this standard and 4.F.R.1.2 go together real well. I would teach them at the same time, actually. This builds on composing and decomposing fractions. And we need plenty of opportunities for modeling and creating equations. Instruction should include allowing students to create real-world situations if they are given a model. So given a picture or an equation, they should be able to look at that and create a situation that represents that. And actually, in Taking on the B.E.S.T, the math mission provides an opportunity to do just that. Okay, common misconceptions or errors. I underline this, that students need to know how to treat the numerator and the denominator when following procedures to add or subtract. That's why it's important to use models so they make sense of it, okay? And this is something actually that I don't want to say I'm guilty of, but something that I was much more intentional about in creating Taking on the B.E.S.T was the making sense part of it. When we're adding them up, to use those models to have it make sense. Why are we only adding the numerators together? Why does the denominator stay the same? Why is that important? Well, the visual models help to show that, which you'll see in the videos. This instructional task right here, I just made a little note because I was reading this problem down here and I noticed, oh, this is a 2-part problem and this would kind of be considered part A and part B. I was reading it and I was like, what are they saying? But remember before where they were saying that it had to be from the same whole? Well, this problem, a medium pizza and a large pizza, this question requires a student to explain why this problem cannot be solved, and it's because that we have different wholes there. So those are great conversational items to have. And here, I like this problem because they mention the rest of the exercise program, and the exercise program itself is considered the whole, and Jose completes 8/12 of the exercise program with sit-ups. So the whole would be 12/12 in this case. All right, I think that is it. Adding and subtracting fractions. Let's see what you have for Taking on the B.E.S.T available to you in your membership. Okay, we're going to click on Members, enter here. Taking on the B.E.S.T, 4th grade, of course. Working on the algebraic reasoning strand. And then 4.AR.1.2, add and subtract real world problems with fractions and mixed numbers. All right, so these are the bronze resources. You basically have a video lesson and a student guide here, a printable student guide. And you might be thinking, why is there only one video lesson? Well, actually, this is because we're focusing on the scenarios here. Okay, the scenario of a real world problem. But keep in mind that when you get to fractions, you will have this standard too. And this standard will have video lessons that focus on just the procedure of adding and subtracting with fractions. Where the other one, the one that we're working on today, let me go back to it. This one is more about the creation of the equation and understanding it that way. Okay, so they should have already had practice with it, and now you're just throwing them into the real world setting of it. With your silver plan, if you have the silver or the gold plan, you have access to these silver resources. I'm going to click on the printables to show you. This is the video lesson on the bronze page. This is the extra practice that goes with it. So even more practice problems. 1, 2 extra practices for students to practice what we just did in the video lesson, but this time on their own. And then here with the math mission, this is a math task. So it's usually a several part process. Here we have 2 bags, each bag weighing 3 3/6 pounds, which are adding 3 3/6 plus 3 3/6. So we're finding the total weight. And then somebody comes and uses some of the onions, so we're subtracting there. And then part 3, create and solve a real world problem for this equation. 2 2/5 plus what equals 4 1/5. So they have to create a scenario about the situation and solve it. That's what the standard was saying. Here's the math misconception mystery page, printable. So you'll just click play right here, and I will walk you through this whole process, and tell the students to pause their video and solve it on their own. Then they will continue watching as 4 characters, which are really just me, dressed up in silly costumes, solve the problems. 3 of them will make a mistake. 1 of them solves it correctly, and students really have to pay attention to see who is correct and why, and evaluate the work of the ones who were incorrect and why. So these are super fun and promote great discussions with your students. Great for whole group. And great for small group stations once your students get the understanding of what's required of them. Okay, then if you have the gold plan, let's check that out. You can go back to your bronze and your silver at any time. You have a mini assessment here, aligned to this standard with a variety of question types. There you go. The gold members also get the perk of having the breaking down the best videos available ad-free and right there with everything. These videos are also available on YouTube, but they contain ads, just so you know. But the main reason for having the gold membership is because you have access to McCarthy Math 155. This is the program that I created that Florida was using as a daily math intervention when we were aligned to the Common Core standards. And once the BEST standards came out, I knew that it wasn't going to support you fully. But there are a lot of skills that trickle over. So let's click it. And if you are a gold member, you will probably want to scroll down to right here. Add and subtract fractions. There are 14 video lessons on adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers, where we're also decomposing fractions and close reading word problems. So when I click that, boom, lots of practice here, adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. So I want to point out, like right here, check this out, like number 5 right here for this day, we'll have regrouping because we need to regroup to have a fraction big enough to be able to subtract 2/4 there. So there's lots of practice on that. If you have students that need just to practice it, to understand what's going on, that is why you have the gold plan, right? Okay. I think that is it. I'm excited for you with this standard. I hope that this all made sense for you, breaking down the standard, showing you what you have access to with your membership. And if you have any questions at all, you can always email me. I'm happy to help. And before we go, let me remind you that what you wake up and you do every day with your life, it really does matter. Thank you so much for being a leader to your students, for showing them what your best looks like every day so that they can catch that and take charge of their learning to step into the best version of themselves. I absolutely appreciate that you are inviting me into your classroom. It is awesome. I just love it. So I know that you are busy, so I'm gonna let you go and I'll see you next time, okay? Bye. Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now. Bye.